Hi, my name is Mike Dugan, and I just want to welcome you to today's Humpday Hangout. We are going to be talking today with Clark Lamping, Bobby Halton, Mike Nasta's on the phone with us. We're going to be talking about acting officers, riding up, acting battalion chiefs, whatever it is, and just different ideas of it. But first, I would like to ask each of you to say a prayer for Lieutenant Jason Maynard of the Worcester FD. Was assigned to Ladder 5 and made the supreme sacrifice last evening at a 4-alarm fire. He leaves behind his wife, Tina, 3 children, and his parents. Please keep them in your thoughts and prayers because this is horrific. And it's very close to the anniversary of the other fatal fire in Worcester where we lost the 6 brothers. So we just want everybody to keep the Worcester Fire Department, Lieutenant Maynard, and all of the members of the department in our thoughts and prayers. So, Clark, you want to say hi?
Yes, sir. How's everybody doing? It's morning where I am on the West Coast. Clark Lamping with the Clark County Fire Department, Las Vegas area. Still assigned Station 11 on the technical rescue team as well. And looking forward to this conversation we have.
I'm Bobby Halton, and coming to you live from the great state of Oklahoma, where I reside. And our other guest we have with us today, did Mike drop off? Did we just lose Mike?
No, I'm here, Bob.
Oh, good.
I'm here.
Yeah, you can't see Mike's photo, but ladies and gentlemen, Professor Michael Nasta. Mike.
How's everybody? I am coming to you guys from the state of Vermont today. I'm actually traveling.
Oh,
it's about 10 degrees and there's about a foot of snow on the ground.
You know, so we were having a conversation, and all of us are from, obviously very different fire departments. All of us kind of served in metro departments, but very different metro departments with different systems. And we also several of us have been affiliated with some volunteer groups. And so the question arose about acting officers, as Mike talked about earlier, which I think is that's an interesting question, right? Like when you have a position that's open, that's normally somebody in the right seat, which is the decision-making seat. How does that work in different systems, and what's the best way to manage that? And should it be allowed at all, or should only promoted people ride in those seats? Are all valid questions. And we want to talk about that a little bit today, and other issues associated with it, right? Like recently there was the Hamilton, Ohio fire where there was an acting officer, and some folks highlighted that as perhaps related to, just something to talk about. I don't think anybody thought it was causal or ascribed any culpability because of the fact that the gentleman had not been promoted yet. But it's worthy of discussion to find out what the qualifications were to have someone act in a system. And in some systems, there's virtually none. So what we thought we'd do today is kind of kick it around about the various systems that we've worked in and that we're aware of, and just kind of take that discussion where it goes, and some other topics that are of interest to us associated with that, and associated with how we select and promote and all that other good stuff inside of systems. So with that, I'll throw it back to Mike, and we'll start off with the boss himself and see where he wants to go with it.
Well, I think the first thing, like anything else in the fire service, if you are going to be riding up, you have to be trained in that. In the city of New York, we make the guys who are going to be lieutenants, we can make them an acting officer only if during the tour a lieutenant gets injured. Then we will make somebody ride up. The person riding up will always ride in an engine because we're going to put two engines together to stretch a line. And there will always be an officer on the truck company. If it's a single firehouse, they will take an officer from a double firehouse, bring them to the single firehouse so there's an officer there, okay? And also make sure that we get these guys, we get this properly done. The other thing that we do in the city of New York is you have to be trained. When I was a captain, I was an ABC, an acting battalion chief, because in the FDNY, our chiefs do not get overtime, so they don't work any extra hours unless they want to pay back a tour or something. But what happened is I went to Kennedy Airport, and I love to tell the story. They said, turn on the 800 megahertz radio, and you're going to be responding for smoking a plane at Kennedy Airport. I look over at the guy driving me, and he's what we call a Band-Aid. The chiefs have drivers, they're aides. Well, if the chief and the aide are off, they give you a guy from the apparatus floor for one day, he's a Band-Aid. And it's me and the Band-Aid. And they look at the kid and they go, do you know what the 800 megahertz radio is? And he goes, no, I have no idea. And he goes, this is my second time driving the chief, Cap, sorry. And I go, okay. I get on the radio and I say to Queens, we're responding to Kennedy Airport, what's an 800 megahertz radio and how do I turn it on? And you can hear the dispatchers in the background giggling. And what happens is they send me to the staging area. But what that prompted is our chief of department to hear what was going on. And he heard it, and I was down at headquarters a couple of weeks later at a meritorious thing at the Board of Merit, and the chief said to me that, what happened? And I told him what happened. I said, you can't do this to me. And
Who was the chief at the time?
Sal Casano. And what they ended up doing is starting the captain's management program. Okay. And every captain, whether you were a captain for a day or 25 years, you went through a 1-week program at the fire academy. Because what happens is in riding up in the city of New York as a captain, it's anybody who is on the list, the current list, who has studied and passed the test, or the senior captain in grade, if there is no current list or nobody on the list is working. So you ride up and you become, listen, I became very good at it. And there were certain places I used to go to certain battalions and they go, you're coming here again? And I'll be like, yeah, because every time I was an acting chief, they went to work because I hated being a chief because I stood out in front. And I went to work every time, rescues being made, burning down, fourth alarms. It happened all the time. So the whole idea to me for this is we have to train our people to do it in every rank, whatever they're going to be doing. And we have to have a structure and a support to do this.
All right. Hey, Mike Nasta, why don't you jump in and talk a little bit about your experience in Newark, obviously one of the largest fire departments in the country, very active fire department. And you served there for over 30 years. What's the system there, and what are your thoughts? We still got Mike Nasta?
Did you hear me, Bob? Did you hear me, Bob?
Got you now, Mike.
All right, this thing keeps muting me for some reason. All right, we had acting captains or acting officers for years, and what actually happened, born out of tragedy, we had a guy killed in the line of duty, and his wife sued the department. I'm going to find out the night he was killed that every officer from his captain right up to the deputy chief that night were acting out of rank. So in exchange for her dropping that part of her lawsuit, there was no more acting out of rank in the city of Newark. Prior to that, all you had to be was on the job for 3 years and you can act out of rank. You can move up to captain, which is our lowest rank. We have no lieutenants. So they were doing so with no training, no experience, basically. And out of that, when it went to court, the judge ruled in this lady's favor that there is no more acting out of rank for any reason. And so either a covering officer will take over, or they'll bring in an officer on overtime to fill whatever rank that is vacant.
I could see that. So there was no, was there any discussion, Mike, about creating a system like Captain Dugan just talked about?
No, what happened was there was a battle in the city. Obviously, didn't want this to to come to fruition because it costs a lot of money in overtime. Obviously, budgetary reasons. But at the end of the day, the judge agreed with the widow, and the city's attorney kind of argued with the judge and kind of made him mad. And what happened was that they were going to allow acting officers in certain incidents, but when that city attorney kind of aggravated the judge slammed the gavel and said no acting out of rank for any reason whatsoever. And that's been that way since that day, going on close to, I think, 20 years now.
Wow.
Question for you, Mike.
Yes.
If a lieutenant or your captain, if your first line officer gets hurt during the tour at a job or something else, what do? Put the company out of service until they bring somebody in from home?
It depends on what time. If it's later on in the shift, Mike, they'll allow somebody to act for a couple of hours. But if it's early on the shift, they will call people in from home. Yes.
Wow. What happens, Mike, if they say they couldn't get anybody? Say, because that happens. Sometimes in a system, you just can't get anybody.
To be honest with you, never had that happen. I mean, we've had guys. I mean, we have guys that always seem to step up, and the officers kind of know, I guess, and they like it because obviously they're making a lot of money, so they know if they don't fulfill the positions, the city will take us probably back to court and it'll be taken away. So that becomes a contractual thing. So we've never actually had anybody, any ranks go unfulfilled. We had guys that'll respond from home. They always find someone. There's plenty of guys that are around. So they'll just start calling down the list until somebody steps up.
Wow. So Clark, what are they doing? What's your system doing?
Well, I got a question for Mike real quick, Chief. Mike, you said what your department policy is. What personally do you think? What are your thoughts on this person? Do you agree with what the judge said, or would you have it a different way if you could?
No, I kind of agree with the judge because what was happening by us, especially in the captain's rank, is because of pay reasons. We had certain companies would let the youngest guy act because they made the most money because of the way the scales ran. So literally they were putting the most inexperienced people in the seats. So I am all for it. Now we have a bona fide officer in the seat at all times that use experience. They passed the test. They've been trained. So I kind of like the system. I agree with it. I certainly do.
And Mike, what do you have to do to become an officer in Newark? What steps do you have to take?
Well, we have the Department of Personnel, so it's a state-run test. So you have to study, obviously study for the test, pass the test, and then once you're promoted within a city, they'll then at that point when you're promoted, before they put you out in the field, they'll send you to either captain school or battalions or deputies, whatever rank you're being promoted to. And they usually put you in the academy for usually around 2 weeks, for 2 weeks of training and various things from department report writing and strategy and tactics. There's a whole list of things that they go through during those couple of weeks of training. But before that, most of those guys have studied just to be able to to take the test and get on the list.
So I got a question for you because all systems are different. Did you have lieutenants and captains, Mike, or just captains in Newark?
No, we've always had just captains. I don't think the lieutenant's rank kind of went away. I believe, and they don't quote me on this, somewhere in the 1940s or 50s.
Okay. And
The lieutenant's rank, there's a lot of departments in New Jersey that no longer have utilized the lieutenant's rank. Most of it goes right to captain.
Oh, okay.
Now, Mike, so you can't go to what you said, captain school. You can't go to captain school if you pass the test. You have to wait till you actually get promoted, and then they send you to captain school. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. To study for the exam, that's all self-study. You don't go to the academy until actually you've been promoted to that rank.
Now, I think the other thing is, and again, there are certain departments that can't afford that. and the overtime, things like that. They'll break the city's budget. Now, Newark is a larger metropolitan area, New York City, but we're still having issues right now with overtime in the city of New York. I think the whole idea of this depends on the department, but it also depends on the structure. On our job, if we have to start, every company has to start the tour, every fire company, with a lieutenant or a captain assigned on a frontline fire apparatus. If a chief goes off, they can take a captain and make him an acting battalion chief, but they have to fill his spot with an overtime captain. So every tour has to start. If there are a lot of chiefs out in one area, they will not leave. I think it's no more than 3 acting chiefs in any one division for the tour. They will move a chief from another division to fill one of those spots and make an acting where he is. They will detail a chief from his regularly assigned firehouse and send him from Queens to Brooklyn or from the Bronx to Manhattan. And that way we have the guys, we always have enough regularly assigned chiefs. On our position, when a chief shows up, if he's a regular chief.
Hey, Dude.
Mike Dugan, did you say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dude.
Yeah.
Hey, try turning off your email and such, bro. We're trying to get you in the chat thing. Your video's locking up and your audio's a little choppy. So try turning off everything except the feed. You're low on bandwidth. There's that little chat window. The guys were sending you a note, just so you know. Sorry, guys, a little technical stuff there for the us seniors on the call here. So, which is everybody but you, Clark.
That's true. That's true. I'm the puppy. I'm the baby in this organization.
Yeah, right. And you're 50.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Right. So, Clark, well, fill us in on what's going on out in Clark County.
We do allow acting. We do allow acting. We do have some stipulations. You're only allowed 1 actor per apparatus. So that's stipulation. But in order to be certified to act, you have to do all of the same things that you have to do to be qualified to take the captain's test. We don't have lieutenants. We just have captains. So you have to take 3 college courses. You have to take a tactics and strategy course. You have to take a legal course. And there's one more captain company officer course. Those are all college courses. You have to have ICS classes. Then we have to have what we call the Captain's Academy. Same thing as Captain's School. You have to complete the Captain's Academy. We call it Company Officer Academy. And then you also have to complete the Driver's Academy as well, because we feel that the captain has to know how to operate the pump and has to know how to operate the equipment if he has to. So you have to check all of these boxes before you're even eligible to take the captain's test. So it sounds a little bit backwards than we do in Newark, that we have to have all the qualifications before you're even allowed to apply to take the test. Once you have all those certifications, then you are eligible to act. Whether you're on the list or not, whether you've taken the test or even passed the test, you are eligible to act. It's the same way with the engineer rank. It's the same way with the battalion chief rank. There's a whole list of things you have to do. And I personally am a very big fan of the acting because you have other people around you. You have other qualified people around you that you can bounce ideas off of, and they typically help you out. If you're acting up, you typically got a lot of support from the company you're working with. So it's a great way to get your feet wet. And it's no different than you take the test, you pass the test, and once you pass the test, the chief calls you up and says, "Hey, you're promoted. Come to the office. We'll get your wife there. You can take a picture, shake hands. Here's your badge, and then go to Station 12. Report to Station 12 right now." And now you're no longer acting, but you're a captain. So it's all the same certifications. So at least you get a chance to get your feet wet. And you can turn down the acting too. It's not required by any means. If you don't want to act that day, then you don't have to act. They do not force you to act, but you put yourself on a list. If you're qualified to act, and if you want to act, they will call you up and they'll let you act. If you have taken the exam and you have passed the exam, you're on a list. Whoever's on the list has priority to act over those who are not on the list. So that's kind of the system we have, and it works really, really well. And I acted as driver many times, and I acted as captain many times as well. Yeah, and it really helped me out.
Clark, my system, I don't want to go through my whole system because mine was very much the 2 systems I was in. career, Albuquerque and Coppell were very similar to yours. Not actually identical, but very similar. And we had, firefighter, engineer, or driver. We had lieutenant, captain, and our captains and lieutenants were a little bit different. Like our captains were like house captains, generally on the ladder, and our lieutenants were engines and rescues and squads. And so it was a little nuanced, but we had pretty much the same thing. And it evolved while I was there. Like when I started off, it was just, you took a written test, people would act after a certain amount of time. But then it evolved to pretty much the same kind of system that Clark just described, to where before you can even sit for the test, the assessment center, you had to basically qualify for the position. You had to do you had to take the school, you had to qualify on, and there was no skipping either. The one thing I did like about Albuquerque is that you had to pass the driver's school. You had to sit for the test and get promoted. It didn't mean you had to drive. In other words, you could opt out not to drive, but you couldn't sit for lieutenant's school or lieutenant's test without having been a driver, which I think is critically important, because I know FDNY is a little different. That you guys can move through, right, Mike, without that step. Still muted, Mike.
Yeah,
Still muted. You still muted, Mikey.
Did he drop
Sorry,
off?
I thought I unmuted. Yes, we can still move through, but what happens now is you are promoted to captain, lieutenant, or battalion chief. You have to take the management program for that. For the lieutenants, it's flips. Before New York state law, any career department in the state of New York has to go through first line supervisors training program, City of New York. And it's a 4-week program before you can ride in the front seat. And then for New York City, it's up in 6 weeks. We do additional stuff for the guys. And then there's the captain's management. Before you're a captain, you get detailed to the Rock for 4 weeks, learn about acting up and riding up and all that other stuff. And then if you're a chief, it's a 6-week program to be a battalion chief.
Right, like ours wasn't as elegant as that, and so when I was listening to Mike Nasta, the Chief Nasta speaking, I think some of the things he pointed out, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, that when that incident took place, unfortunately, your system didn't have any kind of qualifiers in the system for qualifying people to ride up or act, or whatever terminology you want to use. And then what we got out of it for my system, the systems that I was in, was that we weren't as robust, as large as you guys. And so we did have times when we couldn't have fielded a unit if we didn't have that system to where we qualified people prior to promotion, because we didn't have that many officers to draw on. So we needed to have a way to create eligibility, but still qualify it, right? Not just say, hey, you've been here for 3 years or something like that. The men and women who acted in our system had actually proven that they were competent in those positions, just not formally promoted because a vacancy didn't exist. So it's more like the United States Navy does the same thing. You sit for command, you're eligible to be a commander or a captain or whatever long before you get the promotion, because the vacancy didn't exist. But you've already proven that you have the skill set. And one of the things that I liked about it was, at least in Coppell, as I remember, our men and women, when they got to that qualified point, they were required to ride out with an engineer or a lieutenant or a captain and be there with a promoted person, doing the job, but with a person right there next to them, making sure that they were doing the job right. So they got like kind of mentored through it. And I can't remember the exact time frame. I'm old and my memory's shot, but there was a time frame for all of that, right? Like it was like a quals and certs book that you get like from the Wildland, where you had to, do so many activities, you had to show some kind of proficiency, And then there was also an opportunity, if they didn't have enough working fires, to where they go to the drill field and run certain drills to qualify the person. So make sure that the person at least could function. And then, so the promotional exams, which were assessment centers and all the systems I was in, the promotional exams just basically, that just created the rank order for people to get promoted, which was gratifying because it really meant that the people who on that list, they really had showed some competency. So, and I think there's pros and cons to all the different systems, but the one thing that we had that Chief Nasta pointed out that his system did have is that I had days, I ran the staffing back in the day when we used to have to call people one by one when we were just the early days of telestaff. We had days when we couldn't get a promoted person, and we always tried to get a promoted person first by union contract, and it was the right thing to do. But there were days when it just flat out wasn't going to happen, especially around holidays and vacation time, and it just wasn't. And it wasn't because the men and women of the organization didn't give, they cared deeply, but they had family, and we weren't as large as you guys, so we would get jammed up, and I like the fact that the men and women who were writing upper acting, and many of them would qualify and then not take the promotional exam because they didn't want to, but they were still capable of doing that job if the chips were down and we needed them. So I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think that's great. I think that's great, and I think it's a great way to do it. Again, I think there are a couple of things that we need to have a process in place, like you said. We need to have the union on board with it. We need to make sure that we can get it done. And again, it depends on if your people are making overtime, how we're doing this. It's not fair to throw somebody in the right seat today and expect them to be an officer and lead a company with no training at all.
Well, that's the thing. When you're just throwing people in the seat with no training, that's not a good system. And that, unfortunately, that's what we had prior to, to getting rid of the whole system. We would just throw anybody into the seat. There was no rhyme or reason, as long as you held it, the prior rank.
Chief Nasta.
Yes.
Did you ever have a situation in Newark where they forced someone to act? Was that a problem?
I can remember that happening maybe once, and what'll happen sometimes in the morning if they were short. Most guys, after we got the no acting, really didn't want to act, but a couple times where officers got hurt during the shift, especially later on, guys, well, if you don't want us to act normally, we don't want to act now, and then they were ordered to act, and they usually did, but, only because they're not going to disobey an order.
And two things I want to point out to everybody that's listening. I hope I just want to say this because I think it's really, really important. When you have the opportunity to hear a guy like Mike Dugan and Mike Nasta and Clark Lamping, to me it's just phenomenal. And especially what you look at the commitment that Clark and Mike and Mike Nasta have given to the fire service, not only in their their duty to their communities, but Mike's a professor in Jersey, and Mike Dugan is a very active man in fire protection in New York City still, and Clark does tremendous stuff throughout the county and the nation, and all of these folks. Mike Nasta is actually coming to us today. He owns a private company. He's working for his own company that he owns, but he took time, an hour out of his day to do this, to share his really not just his opinion. When a guy like Mike Nasta and Mike Dugan and Clark give you an opinion, it's an opinion that's been vetted, qualified, run through the ringer, run up the flag. These aren't trivial people. These are gentlemen who went through the ranks in some of the most sophisticated and complicated systems in the world, and they're not insignificant people in those systems, nor are they casual observers. That and for Mike Nasta to take time out of his family business to do what he's doing today is something that I think people should be aware of. And Clark taking time from his day, and Mike also. But the effort that these guys take to do this is amazing. And we couldn't do it without the folks at Key Hose. And I apologize at the beginning, we forgot to mention our good folks at Key Hose. We were kind of late getting together, and Mike was kind enough to join us by phone because we really value Mike's opinion. We wanted to hear it, especially on this issue. But Key Hose is a fantastic company, and they do just a fantastic job. They're located down there in Dothan, Alabama. They've got this incredible facility, and they're always welcome to folks to come in and visit. So if you ever are down there in beautiful Dothan, Alabama, and you want to go visit a company that is wide open to the fire service, that's done tremendous work in the area of producing some of the finest quality hose that you can possibly ever hope for in a wide variety of prices and styles, so that, you know, regardless of what you're looking for, Key Hose can fill your hose needs. So, you know, I really hope that you take the time to go to their website. And if you ever have the opportunity, just thank them for supporting programs like this that support education and opinion for the fire service. I think it's really important because, you know, a lot of the folks out there, I know listening to this either on the podcast or live right now, have a system that, you know, maybe just folks act casually. And that can expose you to liability, as Mike described his organization going through 20 years ago. But, you know, nowadays nothing's sacred anymore. We used to be sacrosanct, like we were the cow that the lawyers wouldn't go after. Those days are over. What do they call it when a shark doesn't eat a lawyer? Wasn't that called professional courtesy? Isn't that the term they use, right? So, you know, these folks are out there, and no disrespect to lawyers. My old man was one. They're good people, but, you know, when they see a flaw in a system, a lot of them look at it and say, "Hey, your system's flawed," and that's what they're pointing out. So, and it doesn't have to be. And God bless the FDNY. I mean, you know, the FDNY could have a brass band at every fire if they wanted to, because they're so big, right? But the reality is that a lot of us work in much smaller organizations, and so you have to scale it down to what does it take to run your people through a qualification system? What does it take to run your people through a system? And there's folks out there that will help you. And 3 of them are with me today. I mean, if you're in need of putting one of these types of programs together, Mike Nasta and Mike Dugan and Clark Lamping will be more than happy to talk to you. They'll be more than happy to help you do it. And you don't need to hire, Doodleberg, Westein, and Makowitz to come in and help you develop it. You can do it yourself, and you can create a credible system. And you do that by bringing a credible guy like Mike Nasta and Clark Lamping and Mike Dugan into giving you a hand. And the benefits will be fantastic, because these guys know what they're talking about, and they'll take the time to get to know you and your organization. And they don't do it as a business. So I'm just talking off the cuff here. None of these guys have a business that go around doing this kind of stuff. This is not a commercial. These are just 3 really good guys who've thought deeply about what does it mean to ride up in a position. And it means a lot. It means a lot to us that when you do it, you understand that it's not a trivial thing. It's a thing you're taking on the responsibility for a company or a group of people, and their lives depend on your decision making. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mike Nasta for a minute to have him talk a little bit more about his thoughts on it while we have him.
Well, my biggest thing is ours was done, even though it was born out of a lawsuit, it was born from a safety standpoint. They realized the need that, there were too many acting officers, that they weren't properly trained. They were, way in over their head as far as making decisions on either a company or a battalion or a division level. So the main thing is it enhanced our safety. I mean, I can't give you numbers to how much, how much safer our job got because of no acting rank, but everybody is now properly supervised. And to me, that's, the price of that, to protect my people, there you can't put a price on it. And quite honestly, the city has stepped up and did the right thing, and they continue to bring people in at a obviously a great cost because they believe in our safety. So I have to give the city credit, where credit is due here, because from a safety aspect, hands down, I believe this is the way to go.
I just want to say something on that, Bobby, too. But I agree with what Mike says with the safety. You can't have every rank in the city acting up and everything. But I think it's also a way that we teach our people how to do the jobs above. The people should know what the job above them is. And we have to have a way to do that. And as Clark said, with them, they act up. You have to take the things. In some places, there isn't a list, and we don't have, you have to require it to go. So you have to go to school. If you're going to act up, you have to be on the captain's, go through the captain's management and act up as ride up as a battalion chief. And again, it's very, very important. The other thing is, very honestly, the people around you, as Mike said, support you. They help you when you're acting. I've been acting in a fire where it was a disaster, okay? Where I got there, units were at another box, they came in out of line, and the deputy came, and I was an acting battalion chief. And he looks at me, and he says, okay, I'm taking over. I said, where's this guy? I had to look at my hand. He's like, sitting on my hand. I said, they're on the 5th floor, chief. Why are they on the 5th floor? They got in first door. They didn't get here first door, chief. They're on the 5th floor. Where's this guy? They're in the basement at the compactor. They're up on the top floor, venting the roof. They're here, they're here. The chief looks at me and goes, you're going to run this one. Smart man. You're going to run this one, because it was so out of whack that he knew it. If you came in on a regular fire, I'd be like, chief, you got it. Here's everybody's where they're supposed to be. But we have to understand how these things go, and we have to be able, again, it's very important that we have the support there, okay?
I tell you, one of the best experiences I ever had on the job, I was an engineer. I had had all my qualifications to take the captain's test. I took the captain's test, and I was on the list, and we were on a fire, and the battalion chief was a friend of mine, and he knew I was on the list, and we were third due, so we showed up. I wasn't using my pump or anything like that, just helping the guys grab some tools, and the chief called me up to the command post. I walked up, I told my captain, hey, chief wants me to the command post. I walked up to the command post, and the chief said, I need you to run this fire. It was back of the Suburban. He says, I need you to run this whole fire. Here's what I have so far, finish it. And we ran the fire, and he's in my ear the whole time. Did you think about this? Think about this? How about this? Where's this person? Where's this company? What are they doing? Get a status report. And I tell you what, that helped me out so much. Standing there I was so stressed out running. It was my first fire I ever ran a fire. I ran a bunch of fires on paper, but that was the first fire I ever ran. And to have him standing next to me and mentoring me like that helped me out immensely, and my confidence went through the roof. It was great. And the guys came out, and the guys, listen, they knew I was running the fire. So all the companies, we had some good guys in the job, and they came out. They were being gentle on me. They could have gone sideways and messed around a little bit, but they didn't. They all came out, and they, said, good job, you did great. Next time, think about this, think about this. We had a hot wash, and chief said, you run the hot wash. So I ran the hot wash, everything, and it was a great experience. It was a great experience for me, and I can't say enough about the mentoring aspect of the fire service. I don't know any other job that we need mentors more than in the fire service and in the military. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
And Clark, I'm going to jump in real quick because I've got to run, but I want to jump in and say that's a brilliant point. And while you were talking about it, people always talk about creating a mentoring program and doing all this, right? But this is a way to do it without having to make people feel like they're, big brothers, big sisters or something like that. No disrespect to those great organizations, but this is a way for people to like self-select, right? In other words, you might have a person who mentors you as an engineer and a different person who mentors you as a captain, or one person's going to show you one kind of leadership deal. And so this way you could have really dozens of mentors without having to have a formal mentorship kind of thing, right? It's just helping somebody learn how to get qualified to promote, get qualified to act or ride up, or whatever you want to call it. And I'll just give you one quick story. One of my favorite mentoring stories is I grew up in a system that was all hydranted. And so we get a call into the county one day. We're covering for the county for whatever reason. I can't remember. But it was so long ago, we were still driving Crown Vics. I was a battalion chief, and we're still driving Crown Vics. That I remember. So it's a long time ago, because some people listening to this today probably don't know what a Crown Vic is. So anyway, I go flying out to the county, and I swear to God, it's a chicken farm on fire. A chicken farm, like it's a Colonel Sanders place, right? That where they raise chickens, which I had never been to. So I go flying out there. This place is ablaze. Chickens are dying hand over fist. And if they had cell phones, they would have been clogging the lines, but it was before that. So that the chickens are, waiting for rescue, and none is coming. And a fellow battalion chief, an older fellow named Chuck Noreen, had beat me to the call. And he's leaning up against his Crown Vic, and he's smoking a cigarette, just leaning against it, smoking a Lucky Strike and flipping the ashes. And this place it looks like Dresden. It's just this, it's burning to the ground. And I pull up next to him, Chief, wow, what do we got? What's going on? How can I help? And he looks at me, he says, hey kid, you bring water? I said, no, sir, I'm in my Crown Vic. He said, taps on the pack of Luckies, offers me one. I take it. He says, watch. And he was so calm. He was like so mellow. I didn't even smoke, but I grabbed the cigarette, lit it up, leaned up against the car next to him, trying to act cool, and started smoking with him until the troops came and he started giving orders, and it went fine from there. But you just absolutely have to love that opportunity, right? And Clark, what a great point. I apologize, everybody. I've got to run. I've got an appointment I cannot miss. I certainly do appreciate Mike and Clark, and they're going to continue talking to you. And thank you for allowing me to participate today. And if I don't get a chance before Thanksgiving to say happy Thanksgiving, everybody, happy Thanksgiving. And I'll see you again soon, but please continue without me.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you,
Happy
Chief.
holidays, Bob. Happy
See you guys.
Thanksgiving.
Well, one thing I want to talk about, Clark, if we got a minute, I remember when I was a young fireman working up in Spanish Harlem. We had an old timer by the name of Jimmy Tierney. And one day we get a brand new officer. And the officer had not been in a very fire active area. I looked at this old guy, Tierney, and I said, Tierney, who'd been in Harlem for 30 years already. I said, Tierney, look at this. They're sending us another guy who doesn't know what he's doing. And he looked at me and he said, I'll never forget it. He said, Mike, they sent him here for a reason, because they know we know our job and we do our job. And we're going to train them on how to do their new job. And that's why they sent you guys to us. And there is mentoring up, there's mentoring down, and there's mentoring across your rank. And being a good mentor is being just a good dude. And it's something we should all be. Whether guy, girl, whatever else, you should be a friend to people above you, below you, and equal to you.
That's true words, Mike. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
None of us walk into this business knowing everything. We have to learn it from everybody else. So that's very true words. And then sometimes you got to realize when you have weak spots too, and even if it's equal in rank to you, that they need mentoring too. That they got they're there and they have to learn their job too. Sometimes they learn it later than other people do. Everybody learns at different rates.
Absolutely, brother.
Have the courage to ask as well, right? Hey, if you're so arrogant that you don't want anyone to know that you're have deficiencies in anything, that's egos will kill you. Egos will get you killed on this job. And if you need help with something, you have to have the courage to find someone who has the answer and ask. Reach out and ask, even if he's below you. Even if he's below you.
That's true. I always said the mark of a good officer, you don't need to know everything, but you need to know where to get everything and who to ask for it.
Yep.
Listen, you got to know your strengths and weaknesses and your people's strengths and weaknesses. You got to know how your people are doing. You got to know what your people. I had guys who were hazmat guys. I never did anything with hazmat. I had a group of NACS guys who was unbelievable. And that was great. I was doing a rope drill. I called him in. You got it. Listen, you don't know everything. Nobody does. So know what your people know and know what you know. It's very, very important that we have all of these things together and we work together to make it better because we're only as good as the weakest link.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you guys, Chief Nast, did you guys have some kind of formal mentoring program in Newark?
Unfortunately, we don't. Like I said, our system, our promotional system is done through the state. If we have extra people, we'll allow guys, like if you're going to be promoted to battalion chief and we have, enough of captains to cover the city, we'll take some of the guys that are on the list and we'll make them ride with battalion chiefs so they can, get an idea of, what the job entails. But that usually only exists if we have, if all the captain spots are covered. So that you will ride up, you will ride as, we call a mentor, but only if there's, if all the positions are covered and we have extra officers around for that particular shift. There's nothing really formal, unfortunately.
Yeah. If you could change it, Chief, would you?
Yeah, I would, because the system is, the promotional system itself is kind of painted with a wide brush because it's a statewide thing. So you're kind of forced into complying. It doesn't work. I think certain departments would have a better system in place that works for them. But unfortunately, like I said, it's a statewide system. As far as the mentoring goes, I have to agree with you guys. I'm a firm believer in that. But like I said, our mentoring only goes as far as, what our manpower may be that day.
And I also think the other thing on all of that is the cost. And a lot of smaller departments, we had a mentoring program and the city came back and said, listen, you can't do it anymore because it costs too much money to have a guy ride for 4 weeks with a battalion chief. Well, wait, I gotta fill his captain's spot on overtime for 4 weeks. Do you know how much money that's costing? And we're a pretty big department in a pretty big city, but the money, it's all about the budgets and everything else. And so, there've got to be ways to do it. I also think that the important thing for guys and girls who are going to be promoted or going to get promoted is to network with people in the rank that they are going to. So they have people. We used to call it in the FDNY, dial a friend, okay? Where you're a covering lieutenant, you're going to find us for a day and something's going on and you don't know how to handle it. You look at the riding list for the entire city and you can say, oh, there's Clark. I can call Clark. Oh, Mike Nasta's working. I can call Mike Nasta and talk to him and get some advice because whatever this is scaring the heck out of me or something's going on here. What do I do? A guy got hurt. Had an accident. I don't know how to do all the paperwork. I'm not 100% sure what to do. And calling a friend, knowing your network, working with people within your rank is a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a true story. But it is a lot of people are just afraid to ask for help. They're embarrassed by when you're teaching, you always say, the only stupid question one that never gets asked, but everybody's always embarrassed to reach out, and you're right. And the funny part is how embarrassed people are to reach out and ask for help. Sometimes people are always willing to give it. I've never ever had reached out for help and had somebody say blow me off, so I'm not going to help you. People are always willing to help you, and you should really take advantage of that. That source of embarrassment shouldn't really be there, but unfortunately it is.
I tell people all the time, as a captain, they want captain advice. The first thing that comes out of my mouth 100% of the time is you need to have a mentor and you need to be a mentor. That's it. That's the number 1 and 2 things you need to do as a company officer straight away. Once you have a mentor and once you are a mentor, then come back and we'll talk about being a company officer.
I remember in the FDNY, my first tour as lieutenant, we had to go through 5 weeks of school, floats, 5 weeks. And because there were so many of us being promoted at one time, we were doing a morning and an afternoon shift. And I was in the afternoon shift. It was noon till 8 at night. And we were graduating on this Friday. So the last week was just FDNY guys. So there were less guys. So they made it just 8 to 4. I got a call. Can you work overtime tonight? My first tour as a lieutenant was at 24 hours of overtime. And I said, sure, I'll work. Yeah. You know, I was a fireman and all that. So I go there, and I had been through school and everything else and trained, and they trained me in all the stuff I needed, educational methodology, building construction, arson awareness and all that. They didn't really teach me how to be a boss. And I'll never forget, I get in the rig, we start driving down the block, and we're going down the block, and I look over and I got a brand new white, shiny white front piece. It'll blind you if you look at me too long. And an old timer looks at me and goes, first door? I said, yeah. How'd you know? He goes, you see that thing on the floor? I go, look down. Yeah. He goes, that's the button for the siren. That's your responsibility. I never even thought about it, that I'm the one who's responsible to make the noise. And it was just so funny. You have to be in that position to do what your job is. And you have to know what it is. And you're going to make mistakes. We all do. But having people in that same rank will tell you and teach you how to do things.
Yep. Chief, how long you been retired for?
I've been retired about, actually next week will be 4 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How's it treating you, brother?
Yeah.
How's your health?
It did so far so good. I thank God for that. I mean, you miss it. You know, it's amazing. I don't know if Mike, you seem to see the same way. How fast you become disconnected, it seems, from the department for some reason once you retire. I mean, our department, that disconnection happens fast. You know, obviously you still hear from the guys, get invited back to dinner here and there, but you know, that you miss the everyday stuff. You know, answering calls, just the camaraderie. It's, you know, that's the hardest part to fill.
I was
You know
told
what I
once
miss more than anything?
What's it? Go ahead, Cap.
You know what I miss more than anything, Mike Nasta, is being on the rig with the guys after a job.
Yeah,
They're talking about what they did.
It was explained to me
You
once,
know?
Chief, that your career is like your hand in a bucket of water. And when you're done, you pull your hand out of that bucket of water, and there's a couple ripples for a little bit, and then pretty soon it's completely flat, and there's no more record of you, right?
Yeah, I don't know about there's no more record, but you know, you disappear pretty fast.
Yep. Now, one thing we do at my firehouse specifically, Chief, is anytime someone's going to retire, we invite them over to the firehouse, no matter what rank they are, no matter what they worked for us, they didn't, no matter where in the agency they were, we invite them to dinner. And we put on a really nice meal for them. We sit them down, and I have them tell all of the younger guys at the table, what did you do in your career to make it successful? Tell us everything you did. Give us some nuggets right now. What to do, what to avoid. You tell us. And I want the younger guys to hear someone who worked a full successful career. I want them to hear from your mouth why you're successful. And again, it's another way to mentor people. It's another way to mentor people and treat these outgoing guys right, I feel.
We also do things when we get together. I was a fireman in 53 engine and 43 truck. On May 3rd every year, unless it's a Sunday, on May 3rd every year, 5-3, that firehouse gets together and everybody's invited. I was a captain in Ladder 123. On January 23rd every year, we get together. They call it old timers night. They bring in all the old timers, they bring in all the guys, and we still keep in contact. We have picnics and things like that. So part of your whole idea, leaving the career, is staying in touch with some of the people that you enjoyed. And it's very, very important we do that. And the other thing is, when you leave, you gotta have something to do. Because if you go out with nothing on your plate, no hobbies, no friends, no family, it becomes a very, very lonely existence.
Oh yeah. Especially that we get, you know, we're very fortunate in our jobs when we get to retire at pretty young ages. You need to have something to look forward to. And somebody once told me, as far as retirement, when your time comes, you'll know it. And I did 31 years, and I was comfortable with my decision, you know, as much as I missed my job. But you know, I had other things that I was looking to go to, and you know, to occupy my time. And to go and sit and do nothing, you won't last long that way. That's for sure. That's just unhealthy.
Chief, we only have about 5 minutes left. Do you have any final words?
Yeah, I like the systems that you guys talked about. Is getting back to the acting, acting out of rank thing. I mean, that's definitely a good way to solve the problems. I mean, our problems were solved for us, via judge. I mean, it worked out well for us. We're very well supervised now. But the mentoring systems, Clark, I like what you're talking about. That you really go through the whole process before you take the test. That's kind of a good idea. It's a different approach to it that I never really thought about. So it's good idea. Definitely good plans. Mike, you guys don't seem to be too terribly different from what we do. There really isn't that much acting out of rank. You only have those certain instances where it happens, and but at least you do have a system to get those guys trained. But in the end, I agree with both of you. You have to mentor your people, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yep, absolutely. I'd like to say, completely off topic, holidays are coming up. Holidays are already here. We already had Halloween, and we have Thanksgiving coming up. And we have Christmas, and we all know, us in the fire service all know what improper decorations can cause, what dried out Christmas trees can cause, what people being in the kitchen that have no business being in the kitchen. We've all seen the repercussions of that, right? But in the absence of a formal public education program, that falls on us. That falls on the line firefighters. And if you're running medical calls in people's houses and you see, you need to tell these people. You need to stop parents at the supermarket and ask them how they're going to cook their turkey. You need to direct them to resources. You need to tell kids. At the firehouse, we always purchase for Halloween. We always purchase hundreds and hundreds of glow sticks, and every kid gets a glow stick. And we tell the parents, you put your glow sticks on your kids before they go trick or treating, because every year we have 3 kids get run over and killed trick or treating in my jurisdiction. You have to tell people about cooking turkeys. You have to tell them about using candles. We also buy cases and cases of the battery-powered candles. We tell people no more live fire. No more live fire for Halloween, Thanksgiving, or Christmas. No more live fire. These candles look the same. You can get 1,000 candles on Amazon for like $50. These little tiny candles, they last about 24 hours. It's up to us. It's up to the line firefighters to get the message out. It's up to us. And if we still have people burning their houses down because they fried the turkey wrong, that's on us, that we didn't deliver that message to them. So I'd like everyone to think about that as we move into the holiday season.
I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Key Hose. Key Hose, keyfire.com. They are a great company. As Bobby said, they keep sponsoring these things. We appreciate it deeply. We thank you very much, Key Hose. We hope everybody has a great holiday season. Be safe out there. And if you have anything that you want to discuss on one of these Google Hangouts, reach out to me, Bill Guston, Clark, Mike, Bobby Walton, anybody. We'll help you with whatever we can. We appreciate your time listening to this, and we thank you all very much for all of your efforts. And remember, if you are acting up, if you have a problem, ask for help, ask a friend, and be safe out there. Thank you.